Well, hello, it's good to see everybody. I'm Thor, and we're going to be talking specifically about this Ukraine and Russia situation that's all over the news. I've been off for a couple months, so I haven't been putting out any new videos, but I'm expecting to change that shortly. So we're going to start putting out new videos more on a regular basis. Just so you guys know, the thing about this whole Ukraine Russia situation is we're going through a really big karmic shift at the moment. And I'm sure you guys can feel it in your personal lives, but also in the world around us. In March, we have Rahu and Ketu changing signs. And then in April, we have Saturn changing signs and Jupiter changing signs. So we're in the period leading up to this huge karmic shift where I believe we're going to start seeing the pandemic narrative is going to start dimming down. We're going to see it lower. We're going to see it become less important in the news cycle. And I believe what we're going to start seeing is more of this war prospect entering the news, which we're pretty much seeing in the front pages of the news every single day now. Right now, as of February 15th, 2022, they announced that apparently Putin is willing to negotiate right now, and he pulled back from the border of Ukraine. But, the situation seems very dicey. Where is this situation going to go? So that's what we're all asking. So we're going to look at the astrology, but we're going to look at all of these transits that are changing and what's affecting this situation specifically. So I hope that with explaining this that you guys can get an idea of the type of karmic environment that we're entering, because that's what's going on. There's a karmic environment, and the planets are influencing how people are making decisions. The planets are even influencing how people perceive everything that's going on. So I have a little bit of a presentation. We're going to look at that. And let me pull that up really quick, guys. Presentation. So just so you guys know, I get this a lot, and a lot of other astrologers do it, a lot of ones that practice Vedic astrology like myself. I practice Vedic astrology, which uses the sidereal zodiac. So your sign may be different in Vedic astrology than it is in Western tropical astrology. So be aware of that. If you're trying to calculate your sign, there's some good calculators on the internet that you can find, but make sure it's sidereal Vedic astrology when you do that, okay? So I'm using the sidereal Vedic zodiac, not the Western. Also, your sign, again, can be different using Vedic astrology. So I'm a Leo in Vedic astrology. That's my ascendant. And in Western astrology, which just goes on the day you're born, I would be a Cancer. So you see it's two different signs. But Vedic astrology has so much more predictive power, guys, with the Mahadashas and the Bhuktis. I find Vedic astrology very accurate in how it predicts things and predicts the ripening of karma in your life. So let's go back to the... Also, guys, let's take a look at this. Also, guys, please like and subscribe. My goal is 10,000 subscribers. I think I'm at like 1,076 or so as of this YouTube video. And if you guys are interested in your own reading, please check out my website. The details are going to be down below. And it's 20% off for all readings using code Thor for February. So I just did a big revamp of my website. So if you guys, want to purchase a reading or see what your astrology is all about, check that out. Details are down below. Now let's talk about the world situation, because that's, it's quite important to talk about what's going on, because there's a lot of factors. So it's not just this whole, Russia and NATO standoff with Ukraine, but there's all these factors that are going into this mix. And, to be honest, it's like adding fuel to the fire. So if there ever was a prospect of war, we're going to see it, because there's just so many things creating tension in the environment. So I wanted to, write a synopsis of what we're kind of experiencing, right now. So we got the Russia-Ukraine situation intensifying. China and Russia are starting to have more influence in the world. Supply chain issues still plague the economy, especially in the United States where I'm from. And then we got a very real prospect of war. There's a general feeling of discontent and melees. Inflation continues to eat away at people's standard of living. This is a recipe for unrest and tensions. So just the fact, if you study history, you'll see that whenever there's economic problems, that's a lot of times when we see wars pop up. So it's not a coincidence that, some countries might want to start some sort of conflict to get everyone's minds off of either the social unrest or the economic problems that are happening. So right now, in the United States, for example, you see workers, their average wage, their yearly salary increase is about 3%, but the inflation is 7.5%. So that shows that people's standard of living is being reduced over time. So that's not a good picture for things. That's not a good picture for how everyone's surviving at this moment. So let's change that. Now we're going to talk about this giant karma shift, as I call it. Okay. So Rahu and Ketu changing signs on March 17th, 2022. So what I want to lay out, guys, is we have these big changes happening over the next few months, March and April. So this is all, affecting this Ukraine situation. And then we have some more specific transits that I'll talk about. We're going to talk about the Mars-Venus conjunction, and then we're going to talk about the Mars-Saturn conjunction. But first, we're going to talk about Rahu-Ketu shifting, Saturn shifting, and then we're going to talk about those transits to see what's going on with all this. See if we can get a bigger picture. So this giant karma shift, we have Rahu Ketu, they'll be changing signs March 17, 2022. This indicates many changes both collectively and individually as this affects all people's birth charts. Rahu will move into Aries, Ketu will move into Libra. So this is important to study even how it's going to affect your individual birth chart. Okay? So, Rahu currently is in Taurus, and it's going to be moving backwards into Aries. Ketu is currently in Scorpio. It's moving backwards into Libra. So that's going to affect your personal chart. So what you want to find out is what is your ascendant, and you also want to see how this affects your moon sign, the sign that your moon rests in. So you can always, when you're looking at monthly predictions, always check both of those signs because they're important on how it's going to affect you individually. Now, because it's affecting everybody individually, that means it's going to affect us all on a collective level. And that's why we're seeing this change from the pandemic narrative going into a war narrative right now, because the karma is shifting with all of this. So let's go to the next. We're going to talk about, I made a video about this. You guys can check it out in the history of my videos. But really what's affecting this on a really big level is Rahu in the nakshatra of Kritika. If you guys are aware of nakshatras, there's 27 nakshatras in the zodiac. And so there might be about 2.5 nakshatras per sign. And they can be between signs. So for example, Rahu's in Kritika right now. Kritika is in Taurus and it's in Aries. So it spans 2 signs. So that's a very important thing to understand with all this. It's like a bridge between the 2 signs, okay? So if you guys are aware, Kritika, the nakshatra of Kritika, it's the razor and it's known for its harsh significations. War is in the portfolio of Kritika. Kritika spans from Taurus into Aries. To be clear, guys, Rahu enters Aries March 17th, 2022, and we know already that Aries is the god of war. Aries is ruled by Mars, which war and conflict is in what Mars does. Mars is the karaka of war. So it's very interesting to know that Rahu's about to enter into Aries next month, and we're having this possible war that's manifesting. So let's go back. So Rahu transits Kritika until July 12, 2022. So this is an intense period which increases the likelihood of war and conflict. So to be clear, guys, Rahu's already in Kritika in the sign of Taurus, but it's moving through Kritika and it's going to enter the sign of Aries and still be in the nakshatra of Kritika. I know that's a little bit, I was just having a tongue twister right there. But it's very clear to understand that Kritika is a warlike, it's a very harsh nakshatra. Okay, it's all about getting to the truth. It's ruled by the sun. The sun is considered a cruel planet. So this is a time of harsh consequences, harsh things happening. The razor. Why is it the razor? It's because we're cutting the truth, right? So there's a lot of tensions. A lot of people are angry about lots of things around the world, the economy, the pandemic. So all these things are ripening into this possible physical manifestation of conflict. So let's go to the next. I want to let you guys know the little bit of the history. The last time Rahu was in Kritika, we did have a war. So that's important to note. Now, does every time Rahu enter Kritika and Aries is there a war? Not necessarily, but it creates the potentials for a war or a conflict. So let's take a look in 2003. So this is the Iraq War historical reference. This is the last time that Rahu was in Kritika and Aries. So the Iraq War started March 20th, 2003. That was the official date of when it started. And Rahu was at 7 degrees of Taurus in the nakshatra of Kritika. Some of the deadliest fighting happened while Rahu was in Aries. Now, not necessarily in Kritika, but while it's transiting Aries, you had the first Battle of Fallujah, March 2004, second Battle of Fallujah, December 2004. And that was considered, those battles were considered some of the most deadliest fighting. So we see that this transit, that there's the possibility of conflict, war, battles, those kind of things. We already have a little bit of a historical reference that we can use as a reference point. Now, the next thing we're going to talk about, so that's the Rahu Ketu transit. We're also having Saturn change signs April of 2022. So you guys have to be aware Saturn will move into Aquarius April 29th, 2022. And Saturn, what does it represent? It represents heavy karma. So anytime Saturn changes signs, it's going to be a time of intense karma shifts, a time of intense karma changes. Again, with this transit, you want to check your own birth chart as well. Okay, so when we have this cooker pressure of Rahu changing signs, Saturn changing signs, think of just the whole karmic environment. So this could push us into a war. Literally, it could push us into a war. So I want to let you guys know as a side note, it's always really important to check where Saturn is in your chart, where it's transiting, both from your Lagna and your moon sign. It's going to always affect you in some sort of way because regardless of what Mahadasha or Bhukti you are in, Saturn is one of the transiting planets you always want to take a look at. So Saturn's going to change from Capricorn into Aquarius on April 29th. Now, really quickly, we're going to make another video more specifically on what Saturn in Aquarius means. But a little quick snapshot interpretation would be unrest with the masses. Aquarius is the natural 11th house of the zodiac. So we see that means the masses of people. And so it's really easy to see, it doesn't take a lot of thought to realize that everything that's been going on is leading to unrest. We see that the truckers in Canada are already starting to cause some unrest there in Canada. The truckers are lining up and blocking roads because of they're angry about things. A lot of people are angry about things. So one thing that's good about this whole situation, this situation isn't all bad. So, sometimes we tend to think very dramatically. But the one little grace in this whole situation right now is the Venus-Mars conjunction. Okay? Venus-Mars conjunction started February 10th, 2022 in the sign of Sagittarius, guys. And it's moving into the sign of Capricorn. Both planets are still going to be conjunct as they're transiting. This is the chance for diplomacy. So we have Mars, the generals, the ones that want to go war, the war hawks. And then we got Venus, the diplomats and politicians. that want to try to figure out some sort of negotiation for peace. So right now, both planets are conjunct, okay, all the way till March 24th. This is the grace. This is why we probably saw, President Putin decided to pull back the troops from the border today. And the reason is because Mars is conjunct with Venus. So there's a very good opportunity here till March 24th that we could see peace. We could see a negotiation brought. But I'm going to tell you guys, this negotiation might fail during this whole process. So it could be the generals or Mars ends up taking over and kind of becoming more pronounced in these negotiations. Okay, so let's take a look at the slide here. Like I said, Mars represents like the general's point of view or the military, and Venus represents the diplomats. It's possible for a deal before March 24th, 2022, but there's no guarantees. So there isn't a guarantee that there's going to be a deal, but there's the possibility. So I'm feeling like the universe is giving them the possibility to try to sort things out as best they can. Let's go to the next thing. So let's pretend they don't work it out. I do see there's a probable point where we could see start of a conflict or a war, and that's going to be with the Saturn-Mars conjunction. Okay, so this is a big deal. A lot of astrologers are talking about this on April 4th. That's very soon after that whole Mars-Venus conjunction. April 4th, 2022, Saturn and Mars are going to bring enormous pressure and tension that can lead to war. They're going to be conjunct. These malefics do not like each other. If negotiations break down before this point, war becomes likely at the beginning of April. Okay? So that's what I'm seeing at the moment. I'm seeing that if the negotiations fail this month, the next month, as of, all the way till March 24th, if they can't find any common ground or headway, I do see there could be a war by April. Okay? Even though the news is telling us, war is inevitable, it's still a chance that this war might be averted. Very much a chance. A lot of what they do with these, with President Putin putting his forces on the border, it could be all negotiation tactics. We really don't know. And we also got to keep in mind that wars are fought in many ways. It's not just physical conflict that we need to think about. There's economic war, there's cyber war, there's all types of different ways of fighting wars. So with the physical conflict, there is a lot of forces pushing this thing to a physical confrontation. I'm going to be honest about that. So war is likely come April, come May. Okay, war is likely, but it can be averted. So it's not for sure. But I do see if this thing's going to kick off, I'm seeing it likely by April because of this Saturn-Mars situation. There's so much tension. Saturn and Mars are, you got, Saturn, the planet of seriousness, of government, of laws. And then you got Mars, the planet of anger, of, Mars is the planet of an anarchist. Really, Mars is the one that does whatever they want. They don't care about the law. So these two planets coming together, lots of tension on that day, and there could be a lot of worldwide unrest as well. So if we don't see a war there could just be simply unrest there. So you guys, thank you for watching. Let me check if there's any questions here. We got on the 3rd of March, Venus, Mars will join Pluto. What then? So I didn't actually, someone's asking about the Pluto situation. I didn't actually include the Pluto transit within this presentation. Pluto is, now traditionally, Pluto's not really included in traditional Vedic astrology. However, there's a lot of information we can get by looking at Pluto, Uranus, and Neptune. There's a lot of additional information. It's used in Western astrology. I know that Pluto's currently transiting the 10th house of Capricorn, so we're seeing the government's going to be going through a lot of forced changes at this moment. And this transit's a very long transit. So this could definitely push things to a head. And I'm going to look at another question from the chat. I have to add that is the same time Mercury will conjunct Saturn and Sun will conjunct Jupiter on the 4th of March. Thank you very much. I guess there's a lot pressure happening on that day. So, when Pluto's transiting Capricorn, it can show, changes in the governments around the world. And then we know, and I'll have to do another video on this, we know that there's a Pluto return happening in the United States birth chart. So that's something else we need to look at as well, because it factors all into this. So thank you guys for watching. Please comment down below. Let me know what you guys think. I've been reading a lot of comments, throughout different forums. A lot of people think there's going to be a war. It's going to get really bad. And then there's other people that think, that this is, it's going to just fizzle out and there won't be nothing that happens. So thank you guys for watching, and subscribe and check out for my next video. Thank you very much, guys. I'll see you in the next one.